Hey everybody, this is JP with Political Pop Culture, and this is a hot take. So, I'm going through the news this morning, as I do every morning, as you know. I came across something that I really wanted to bring to you, and the reason why is that this story has some very interesting implications. U.S. lawmakers propose giving USPS $6 billion for electric delivery vehicles. All right, this is an interesting story. A group of 17 U.S. House representatives, Democrats, introduced legislation on Monday to provide $6 billion to the U.S. Postal Service in order to buy tens of thousands of additional electric delivery vehicles. Ohio-based electric vehicle maker Workhorse Group Incorporated saw shares jump 13% on prospects the company may be able to sell electric postal vehicles. Last month, it lost out when the USPS awarded a $482 million contract to Oshkosh Defense to finalize production for the next generation postal vehicles. Okay, pause there for just a moment because there is a lot to unpack right there. First and foremost, USPS lost over $9 billion last year. All right, one more time. $9 billion. The net loss for USPS last year was $9.2 billion. That's $363 million more than they lost in 2019. Now, how is that even possible? 2020, the pandemic, you saw more mail, more packages being shipped than at any other time in history. How in the hell did the post office lose $363 million more in 2020 than they did in 2019? It doesn't make sense. Throwing another $6 billion at them, $6 billion of taxpayer money for something that in the best possible light is non-essential, it seems absolutely idiotic. But is it? Is it idiotic or is it something worse? The story mentions, I'm going to highlight this part here. The story mentions that shares of Ohio-based electric vehicle maker Workhorse jumped 13% on prospects the company may be able to sell electric postal vehicles. Okay, well, who's Workhorse Group Incorporated? Well, they're a manufacturing company in Loveland, Ohio, and they manufacture electric-powered vehicles and electric-powered delivery and utility vehicles. Sorry. Now, I mean, that sounds pretty good, but why would 17 Democrats want to create legislation that would benefit a manufacturing company in Ohio? I mean, Democrats lost Ohio in 2016 and 2020, and Democrats lost Ohio in the last two presidential elections, so maybe they're trying to make inroads in the state for 2024. Now, I'm sure that's just a coincidence. Let's continue with the article. Last month, Workhorse lost out when the USPS awarded a $482 million contract to Oshkosh Defense to finalize production for the next generation of postal vehicles. So wait, hang on. Oshkosh Defense? The makers of the U.S. military's JLTV or Joint Light Tactical Vehicle? That Oshkosh Defense? You're saying a military contractor in Wisconsin, another presidential swing state, was awarded a $500 million contract under the Biden administration? And now a company in Ohio, which again, swing state, is potentially getting to cash in on this deal too? Now there may not be fire here, but there sure as hell is some smoke. You got two companies in important presidential swing states that are looking at bringing in hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars from government contracts. Curious. The bill, sponsored by Representative Jared Huffman and seen by Reuters, would require at least 75% of the new fleet to be electric or zero-emission vehicles. If Congress approves the funding, there's no guarantee USPS would agree to buy the vehicles from Workhorse. Okay, yet the shares jumped, and looking at the market now, shares of Workhorse are continuing to climb. As of this recording, they're up over 7% on the day. Again, there's smoke here, people. Last month, USPS said it was committed to having electric vehicles make up 10% of its next generation fleet as part of its multi-billion-dollar plan to retire its 30-year-old delivery vehicles. It said it could boost that percentage if it received billions of dollars in government assistance. Okay. Yeah, really? You could boost the percentage from 10%. If only you had billions of taxpayer dollars to spend. Who knew? You know, look, hey, if only I received billions of taxpayer dollars, why, I could dramatically grow my YouTube and Rumble channels. I'm way more reliable than the USPS. I've never lost billions of taxpayer dollars. Not once. Okay. Seriously, get back to this here. We welcome and are interested in any support from Congress that advances the goal of a postal service fleet with zero emissions and the necessary infrastructure required to operate it. With the right level of support, the majority of the Postal Service's fleet can be electric by the end of the decade. Okay. Look, the only way these vehicles are going to be zero emission is if they never get manufactured. I mean, they still require electricity to run, and that electricity is still largely produced from fossil fuels. Now, you add tens of thousands of electric vehicles to the fleet, you're going to see a reduction in emissions from the fleet, but that's going to be offset by the increase in electrical production that's required to power the fleet. Now, I'm not saying electric vehicles are bad. They aren't. In fact, for the type of start and stop driving that much of the USPS fleet does, electric vehicles may be a really good idea. They may really make sense. But throwing $6 billion into developing and building those vehicles, that is not the best way to spend the money. That money is our money, the taxpayer money. That's not the best way to spend it if you want to improve the Postal Service. Putting skilled managers in place, hiring people that know how to run a profitable business, and putting those people in key positions throughout the Postal Service, that's the way to fix things, not spending $6 billion on designing and building electric vehicles. Get rid of the bureaucracy. Get rid of the extraneous and unnecessary bloat in the agency. Streamline it. Make it more efficient. There is no excuse for the USPS losing over $9 billion in a year. I'm not saying it needs to be profitable, but at the very least, it should be revenue neutral. Move down here just a little bit. Workhorse said it applauds any efforts that support the Biden administration's goal of expanding the government's fleet of clean, non-combustion engine vehicles. Well, of course you applaud and support it. You make the vehicles. I mean, that's like saying Democrats are in favor of uninformed voters who are easily manipulated with racial and class division. Duh. I mean, we're getting beyond the meat of the article here, but look, you've got the last couple paragraphs here are interesting, and I want to go over this. Democratic Representative Tim Ryan separately wrote the Securities and Exchange Commission on Monday asking about reports of what might be unusual trading of Oshkosh stock shortly before the contract was announced. Ryan and two other lawmakers, including Senator Sherrod Brown, wrote Biden last week urging the administration to, quote, delay the contract until a thorough review is conducted. Oshkosh and the SEC did not immediately comment. Now, what is really interesting here is what Tim Ryan is referring to when he mentions unusual trading of Oshkosh stock. I'm going to show you part of Tim Ryan's letter here. In his letter, Representative Ryan wrote, quote, specifically an over $54 million purchase of OSK, which is Oshkosh stock, made 24 hours before Mr. DeJoy's announcement was brought to my attention on social media and in news reports. Additionally, it is my understanding that the OSK stock rose significantly prior to the announcement. Given the gravity and serious implications of this contract, I am writing to request that the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, look into this issue as soon as possible. Okay, I absolutely 100% agree with Tim Ryan here. And I don't care what side of the aisle he's on. If insider trading took place, if someone in the administration, in the USPS, if Postmaster General Louis DeJoy himself used prior knowledge of Oshkosh Defense winning the contract to line their own pockets, they need to be tried, convicted, and imprisoned. There is no excuse for lining your pockets at the expense of the American people. I don't care who you are. So after all of that, my bottom line is this. Restructuring the USPS would be a far better use of taxpayer resources than developing and building a new fleet of electric vehicles. Look, going green is a good way to pander to the Democrats' base, but in the long run, with the additional infrastructure needed to power and maintain those vehicles, it's not going to do anything to help point the USPS in the right direction. So why don't we focus on plugging the holes, fixing the leaks, and righting the ship before we worry about what color we want to paint the lifeboats? That's my hot take, and I would love to hear your take. Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know what you think in the comments. And also, if you enjoyed this hot take, please take a second, give us a like or a rumble. That one little thing really does make a big difference to the channel. So thank you for your support and thank you for listening.